Picture those dark wartime days at this bunker 70 years ago. Thick smog at night, no streetlights, and flying bombs dropping on London. Coloured phones in the operations room connecting with the military command beyond as latest troop and naval positions were communicated. Sometimes Winston Churchill would be here to consult and command. Next door, colour-coded wool was used to wind out on pins to mark the front lines across Europe and Russia. The extent of the German advance in 1942 towards Stalingrad marked out in blue. Further east in Central Europe, an almost interlocking pattern of lines marked the ebb and flow of millions of troops. And a chart showed the daily tally of the flying bombs, 4,000 deaths in 1 month. The new exhibition honours the unsung heroes of this underground war effort.
The thing that surprised me is how involved people who you might think were on the periphery were. So we've got a lady here who is a typist down here, but she remembers actually typing the battle orders for D-Day, and she knew the date that was going to happen from down here.
And you've got some letters on display here. What are they about?
Yeah, we've got this great letter which I found in the National Archives, which is describing a meeting that Patrick Duff had with Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill was very cross to discover that the war rooms weren't as safe as he'd thought. He says, on going through the plans of the war room and explaining the stresses which they could stand up to and what they could not stand up to, the PM said that I had sold him a pup in letting him think this place is a real bomb-proof shelter, whereas this is nothing of the kind. And I also really like the PS on this letter, where Patrick says, take no notice of this peevishness. He's obviously very angry after this meeting because he'd always said no, it wasn't safe. And here was Churchill accusing him of having led him up a blind alley.
These old photos could be just ordinary records of women and men at work. A young woman poses for a close-up. And here the Prime Minister also poses next to an assistant. The women who worked here, now in their 80s, had a chance to be reminded of their past all those years ago before they spoke about their experiences.
I do remember typing the battle orders, and we knew the dates, as I said on the film. We must have had the good results, but I can't remember very much about that. But of course, we were using those old-fashioned waxes, which were absolutely hell to type on, and worse still if you had to amend them with something like nail varnish stuff. And then they had to be all rolled off by hand. So there was a tremendous amount of activity, and it involved a number of people.
And we had to sort of fight our way home in the yellow smog. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see the taxis or anything. No lights on cars. No street lights, and we used to go down there. I remember being at Fountain Court, and I was on about the 4th or 5th floor, and if the bombing raids were on and the sirens went, the only people to be able to use the lifts were the officers and the sergeants. We had to walk down and up again, so we just didn't bother to go. We just used to stay upstairs and wave to the German planes coming over.
And I went from a wireless operator to a Morse slit reader. Wireless operator, you just used the keyboard. Morse slit reader had the Morse in your ears. It typed it out and it came through on this perforated tape. And that's...
And then after then you went to where?
Then I went to Bletchley Park after that. I think I was pending here because I was only here like 6 months or 12 months at the most. Then I went to Bletchley Park.
These young women matched the looks on the recruitment posters, and they were all equally part of the war effort upon which the wartime leader, Winston Churchill, relied.